And we are back here on the Battlefield live stream. I am joined now by Patrick Soderland, who is the Executive Vice President here on the EA Games label. But Patrick doesn't just have history here on EA, he actually has a really, really great backstory and history with DICE. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, I founded a company back in 1996 called Refraction Games with two other guys, and we had this idea. We came more or less straight out of school, and we had this idea of a first-person shooter but with vehicles, and they had worked on a 3D engine that basically displayed a jeep, a tank, a plane in a very simplified landscape environment. And we started designing a game around the notion of the fact that you could be outdoors and get in and out of vehicles and have a kind of an all-out war experience. So that was the basis for the company that we founded. We eventually got some capital. We made a game called Codename Eagle, and that if you go back and look at Codename Eagle, that's still it had the same base gameplay as you'd find in Battlefield even today, where you could actually get in and out of airplanes. You could go drive a tank, and all those things. Obviously, not at the fidelity you'll see today in the game, but it was an exciting idea. The game didn't do well at all. We made the game in 14 months, 7-8 people. We had the normal sleep in the office, drink too much Coca-Cola, not a great time. But what it proved to us was that we had a good idea. So afterwards, we decided that we're going to have to make a game that's actually where you can actually where you had some kind of link and understanding for what it was in context of another war. So we decided to go for World War II, and that then was the embryo for what became Battlefield in 1942, and that eventually then became DICE, and that's how the company grew up.
Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah.
I think actually the first time that I heard that story, ironically, was from a limo driver coming out of London Heathrow, because he's like, "Do you work with Electronic Arts?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Do you know Patrick Sullivan?" I was like, "Yeah." "Oh, well, let me tell you his story," and then just kind of like told it to me, and I was like, "That's amazing that you know this."
That's crazy. I must have. It's probably one of the guys that I use when I'm there.
Yeah. So you have fans. And so it's been a while. I mean, you guys have taken the game so far. You're here at E3 2013. You're showing off live multiplayer, 64 people, very confident in the code. What's that feel like? I mean, what is the feeling that you get when the curtain comes up and there's 64 players live on stage?
The first feeling you get is you're nervous. You're really nervous because you don't know if it's going to work.
Right.
You know, this is pre-alpha code. Obviously, there are bugs in it. It's not polished yet, but it's. I think that this year we managed to show up with something that is more polished than we've ever been at E3 with. It is fully playable and a lot of new things in it. So I felt great, and you know, every moment that we showed, from the big city, the helicopter flying in, you landing, to when you get into the underground area, to blowing up those pillars, the tank falls down, to frankly taking an elevator up into a skyscraper. And you had like a fight up there like you would in a close quarters map. Someone decides to take down the actual skyscraper, and you base jump out of the building. When I saw that in Sweden, when the guys presented their idea of Siege of Shanghai to me, I'm like, "Are you crazy? You can't do this." And they said they could, and I guess they did. I would say that this is probably the most complex and dynamic Battlefield map that we've ever built.
I think there's a lot of really great things about it, and we've been watching these guys play multiplayer all week, and I think what's really fascinating is every time we get in a match, it's completely new players. They've never played Battlefield 4 before, and all the matches go so differently just based on the destruction. And I mean, you see here, like, there's these huge vehicle battles just happening in the middle of random squares. Like, this isn't even a capture point. What are you guys doing over here? But seeing the players play has been really, really exciting. And then when that skyscraper goes down, it just changes everything.
Yeah, what people need to understand, obviously there's a lot of graphical improvements, and the game looks better, animation's better, and it's a smoother experience overall. But the things that make this really different, and what makes me, as a pretty hardcore Battlefield player, excited about it, is the idea of Levolution is so much bigger than people understand, and they need to experience it to fully understand it. It's not just about taking down a skyscraper, it's about the small things. Like in this particular case, you go into the underground and you walk through one of the TV monitors, and it will activate when you run by it. It turns off because in a normal society you would have energy saving, right? So it would turn off, but it will react on movement. So what does that mean? Well, it means that I could be sitting in a corner, I could see one of those monitors come up because the light is going on in the whole room.
Oh.
So I can, okay, someone is coming, but it's subtle, but I can use that as a tactical advantage. And then again, downstairs you have these kind of metal detectors that you would have in a store for so people can't steal stuff. And you walk into one of those with a gun up, it's going to go off. And then you also know that there's there. You can actually shut the storefront down by pushing a button. So the guys have really built a far more dynamic battlefield, both on a micro level like that, and also obviously on a full-scale level, like taking down a full building, which is cool. And then what's, I think, further even cooler is people, when watched our demo at the press conference may have thought that, okay, taking down the skyscraper means the end of round. No, it doesn't. The round continues. The spawn point moves, and now the whole map is going to be covered in concrete dust, and that yet again will give it another completely type of different gameplay experience, whereby you can't see as far anymore because it's covered in dust. The whole level gets a different feeling and look to it, and it plays differently. So again, Levolution is something extremely cool, and again, this is on one map. You're going to see a lot of other maps where Levolution means something different. So that's probably the one thing that if you were to ask me of a single gameplay changing feature or idea, that's the strongest one we have, I think.
Yeah, and we've seen a lot of really great examples of that, and I can't wait to have the metagame evolve almost, right? Because once you get people in here and they're playing this map consistently, we're going to see a lot of people be able to take advantage of that. And to your point, when that tank sunk down in the street, everybody in the audience at the press conference lost it. That was amazing.
Yeah.
I think I actually might spend my rounds camping out and waiting for a tank to come just to have that moment. So have you gotten a chance to play it all on the show floor?
I played a little bit, yes. I played a lot when I was home,
yep.
Obviously before the show floor, and I've been in interviews more or less all the time, but I played a couple of rounds. One of the things that we are working hard on, and then I think based on the feedback that we're getting here from the show floor, is we may have to be a little bit more clear with that, is on the Levolution side, you just talked about those pillars where you take them down and the tank falls into it. We have to be able to tell the players what parts of the map is destructible and what others aren't, because we could in theory make the whole map fully destructible, but trust me, that wouldn't be a fun game.
Right.
Because that would change the gameplay so much that it would be unbalanced and difficult to play. So what we have to do is to figure out where we want destruction and why it makes sense in that particular place, and then tell the player in a very frankly smart way, and kind of a graphical language, but also kind of an interactive language to make him understand that this is a destructible piece, and that you can decide to take out or not. That's something that. So what I'm trying to say is, when we're here, this is not just us showing the game at the booth. This is a very good litmus test for us to see what works and what doesn't. Just like an early alpha for us, where we can actually look at stuff and say, okay, we have to improve these 10 things, and we can then go home to Sweden and continue honing the game.
I think that's what's really interesting about it as well. Like, anytime you guys do these alpha tests or these beta tests, you're actually watching what players are doing and making sure that it's okay. Because if you guys spend every day with the game, and I'm sure the way that you play is much different than the way that guy that just bought the helicopter. Yeah. Some people might actually learn how to fly helicopters.
Yeah. I try to avoid that.
I try to avoid flying helicopters too, because I do that.
So what people don't understand, during all these matches, we pull a bunch of data and telemetry. So we will know how many bullets got fired, where people spent their time on the map, choke points on the map, frankly, what weapons they used the most. We will have so much data coming out of this that we're going to use to make the game better. Mm-hmm. So, in a way, we should thank all the people that come here and play it. And again, that's how we, frankly, run our whole game service after launch too. We continue to monitor the game on a daily basis and pull data to understand what works and what doesn't work. When you make a game, not everything you do will work, and not everything you do will be good. So what's important for us is to find those not so good things and correct them as quickly as possible.
And I think the Reddit community and the Facebook community and the Twitter community have done a really good job at that. We have one of the best, most organized communities that I've ever seen, because they'll write essays. They're like, here's why I feel like this tweak should be made, and it's great reading all of those.
Yeah, and frankly, I read a lot of those too, and what strikes me is you get some of the kind of troll comments of this is just dumb, I hate this, which some people may do, but it doesn't really help us. But the people, I find it interesting that people take the time and energy to write insightful, smart feedback, and trust me, the people in the studio read those comments, and they listen to them, and sometimes they will yield in a change, and sometimes they won't, because maybe that's how we intended it to be. But at least that's what I think that's where the power of the community is so big. Unfortunately, we don't get a whole lot out of DICE are a bunch of idiots, they shouldn't be doing it this way. That doesn't really help us, but the constructive feedback will make the game better. And I think that's on an ongoing basis. And that to me is, do you see that? He just knifed him.
Oh,
that's
man, nice.
so cool.
That looks awesome. I think, I really do enjoy going to the office and seeing everybody's feedback. So kind of changing gears a little bit, the Frostbite engine, Frostbite 3 is absolutely amazing. So amazing so that EA is starting to embrace it as a technology, and we're starting to see it pop up in some different franchises. Can you talk a bit about EA's decision to invest heavily in the Frostbite engine?
I mean, it's relatively simple. 6-7 years ago, the EA Games label, which I now oversee, had 11 different engines. And when you have 11 different engines, one can argue that it's difficult to make all of them great. You just can't. And then you don't have any benefits of having 11 different engines, because every single studio will be trained on a different engine. So that means that if DICE is struggling with something and may need help from, let's say, a Bioware studio, they can't, because the Bioware guys don't know Frostbite and vice versa. Now today, well, basically every single team in the games label have themselves decided to use Frostbite. It is not something that we force on people. They've decided to use the engine themselves because they think it's the best technology base that they can have. And what that does for me and for the people who run the label is it allows us to be able to give teams help where they need help. And to me, that is a gigantic benefit. And then obviously, working and improving on one code base instead of 11 is going to make that one code base better all the time. So that's the cool part about Frostbite. Another really cool part is when you have, let's say, 1,500 people working on Frostbite, you get so much more. It's almost like a cloud-based programming event where we're actually, you'll have Bioware contribute to the engine, and you will have Ghost in Gothenburg contribute to the engine, and you will have Visceral in San Francisco write code that then gets ported over into the main branch. It could be stuff like third-person camera systems to better physics, to better collision. Anything that you want can happen because some smart individual invented something in a different location that then gets back inputted into the main branch.
So you talk about all of these different studios that you guys work with, right? There's Visceral and Bioware, all that. Can you talk about what it's like working with EA and other studios?
Well, for me, one of the most interesting things, I was general manager for DICE for a long time. The company then got acquired by Electronic Arts, and when we got acquired, I relatively quickly got more things to do, and eventually, obviously now run the whole label. And what I find interesting is, look at that, it's coming down.
That's so beautiful.
What I find interesting is, for me, it's been an extremely interesting time in my life, because I come from one place with one culture and one type of idea on how to do things, to Bioware, which is fundamentally different in so many ways, but equally good, but in a different way. So for me, it's been an interesting learning and understand that there are actually other ways of doing it than maybe what I was used to, and to learn to respect those studios for what they're good at, but at the same time, dare to push them in a direction that you think you can. Let's take Bioware as an example. I took over the Bioware group in October of last year, and I'm a gigantic fan of Bioware. It's arguably one of the best studios in the world at what they do. And I told Frank, my boss, listen, I don't know how much I can teach these guys. I don't know that I can, trying to be humble, frankly, because I'm super impressed with those guys. But then I came to BioWare and I realized that I can bring them. There's a lot of things that I can't teach them, and there's frankly a lot of things that they're going to have to teach me. But I do come, because I come from a different world and with a different approach to things, there are actually things that I can help them with. And that to me is the most inspiring part with my job, to kind of take different cultures from different locations around the world and different development teams and influence them as best I can to do things better and to do them maybe different and to push for innovation and quality around what we do. So it's super interesting and very different, but at the same time highly inspiring for me.
Awesome. Well, I think that I just want to thank you for coming on, because you being able to explain what it is that you do and how we all work together and stuff like that just means so much for the community. It means a lot to myself as an Electronic Arts employee. And so thank you so much for taking the time. We really enjoyed Battlefield 4.
And if people want to find me and try and kill me, I'm Romeo Dev online.
And what was that?
Romeo Dev.
All right, internet. Everybody add Patrick and try to get his dog tags. Thank you guys so much, and we will be back after this quick break with more Battlefield Live from E3 2013.